question when you're doing an intake, the client keeps going over a particular issue like a broken record, not adding new information. How do you get them back on track smoothly? And my response was, I don't care if you do it smoothly, you got to do it. And if it comes off as being a little abrasive, sometimes you have to be, because you have to show your client who's running the show. If you don't, they're going to lose respect for you, and you're not going to get the success you should. Sometimes they're even testing you. They want to see how far they can go running things, and when you're going to intervene and get them on track. Here's what happens if you don't. They're going to leave the session and go, I didn't get anything out of that. And they're never going to think it's their fault. It's going to be your fault. And in reality, there'd be a lot of truth in that, because you're the one that's supposed to be dictating the nature of the session. So what I'll do when somebody's, well, I started to say the comfort zone was one thing. The other thing is it tells me if they're doing that you're either not asking the right questions or you're not holding their feet to the fire when you ask them a question.
I think I didn't hold this lady's feet to the fire. This is actually the lady I talk about later in the stuff I sent you, the lady who was the cancer patient with the Gerson thing.
Yeah. That
lady.
All right. Well, my answer would remain the same regardless.
Well, yeah.
I generally, when somebody does that, I'll say, we've got an hour or 2 hours if it's a first session or whatever it is. And if we keep going back over the same stuff, I hear you on that. I understand what you're saying, but it's time to move on. We're getting stuck in this, and it's getting circular. We're not getting anywhere. We need to make some progress.
Okay. I think holding people's feet to the fire and being a little bit more willing to be even abrasive is a weak point for me. And I think it plays into some of the stuff that we're going to do some therapy on for me when I visit you, just as a side note, a sidebar.
All right. That sounds good. So one more step to that. They may still try to go back and test you. They may go back to the same thing. I'll just say, no. We already covered that. I told you we're not going over it again. Let's move forward. And I just get them moving forward. I got places to go, people to see, things to do. I don't have time to waste. So I'm moving forward. All right. Next question kind of follows suit with this, but I want you to give me an example. How do you handle a client who is constantly looking for ways to challenge your authority and try to control you and the session?
Okay. This is a client that we talked about some time ago. A lady who came in for problems managing her anger. And this was a woman who was constantly going through boyfriend after boyfriend after boyfriend and put out sort of a glamour, if you will, a persona of being very cool and very sexy and very in control and telling people what to do. And so my persona is somewhat different from that. And I think she saw me as sort of a challenge. She wanted to see how much she could push me and how much she could control me and how much she could try to catch me off guard with running the session. And I think she was surprised by how much I didn't let her get away with that.
Give me an example of some of the things that she did that that made you initially aware that she was trying to do this. Can you think of anything? I know it probably was a little bit a little bit of time has passed, but just generally.
Part of it was her body language. The only thing that's coming to the top of my mind immediately is I had a small heater running, and she said, "Oh, we don't need your white noise machine." I said, "That's a heater." But, you know, there was just a lot of assumption of, you know, already knowing what was going to go on. And she was one of the people that said, "Well, you know, I'm really not sure that this can work, and, you know, and you're just going to get out your pocket watch and wave it in front of me and stuff, aren't you?" And I said, "No, I don't do that. I don't work that way. Hypnosis doesn't work. You know, I don't do this." So,
well, see, what you did right then is you just defended yourself.
yeah.
And I would not do that. I don't
Okay.
defend myself. It's my office. I'm the professional. I'm the authority on the subject. You came to me. I didn't come and drag you out of your house and throw you in my chair. So I have nothing to defend. So if somebody said to me, "We really don't need your white noise machine," whether it was a heater or whatever it was, I would have probably said, "I like it. Is it annoying you?" And if she said yes, I'd say, "Well, I'll put something else on." And I would just change. I wouldn't turn it off, because I'm not going to let her dictate what's going on in my office. But I would acknowledge that I want to know if that particular sound is abrasive to her. That acknowledges what she said, but it doesn't give her control. If she said to me, "Really not sure if this is going to work, you're going to wave a watch and all of that stuff," I would have said, "You seem like a smart lady to me. I don't think you'd be stupid enough to come and sit here if you didn't think it would work. Am I right or wrong?"
Can you help me become more like you?
I'm not going to defend myself. Once you defend yourself, you're in a sense acknowledging that you have something to defend.
You're right. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Somebody like that who seems to have an anger issue. I wasn't there. I'm just going on what you told me. But that's fear and usually fear. It could be fear and frustration. So what she's essentially telling you is she's a very fearful person. She's like a dog who's a fear biter. So she's gonna try to get you and get to you before you can get to her. She's fearful.
Okay, I did get that, watching her, that was exactly what she was doing.
So here's what I think is a mistake that people make in that particular scenario. They try to comfort the person or come off in a more passive way so that they don't agitate the person. I have a different theory on that. I think it's just like kids who push their parents to see what the limits are. The child actually wants the parent to set good boundaries. And they'll push as hard as they can until they reach a point where that parent sets boundaries. That helps them to feel safe. So when you're working with a client, I would suggest in most cases the same thing. They want to see that you're setting boundaries and that you know what you're doing and that you're not going to take any crap from them. They're not going to be able to push your buttons. I've told people in the past, look, if you have concerns about this working or concerns about me or concerns about hypnotherapy or anything, and you're not up to doing the work, I'll give you your money back and you can go home. That way it doesn't waste your time and my time. If you want to do the work, I'm here. Your choice. What do you want? You get to pick.
Okay. I'm just writing down some of this stuff. I think one of the things that I'm learning from working with some of these people, I mean, some people, there's no problem, it's fine, it's great. But, you know, the cases I've given you are the ones where it wasn't so great. And I think one of the things I've learned from the compliance thing is that there's some stuff I need to work on in me, and how people.
And whenever there's a problem, problem or issue, it always starts inside of you or me or whoever it is. The first place we have to fix everything is in here. So that's not uncommon, and there's nothing wrong with that, and you shouldn't feel in any way bad about that. That's just life. The big problem is when people don't recognize that, and they think the problem's somebody else, and they got to change somebody else.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, in my own life, I've had trouble with feeling like I was a pushover, or, you know, not being good at confronting people. I would either just not deal with them or just walk away, or, you know, and there are, of course, reasons for that, but I think I need to change the way I deal with people now that I'm a therapist, particularly, and be more willing to be in your face and say, this is how it's going to be, like you are.
When you change your perception, your behavioral shifts. See, I look at it like this. With my children, they live in a benevolent dictatorship. They don't live in a democracy. And I make no bones about that, because my wife and I pay the bills. We take care of the house. It's our responsibility. With responsibility comes power, and with power comes responsibility. So I set the boundaries that I think are right for them, because my belief in parenting is that my job is to work myself out of a job. My job is to make them so strong and independent that if something happened to me, they're fine. They can take care of themselves. Well, so that idea of working yourself out of a job is the same thing I believe in doing as a therapist. With my kids, if they get mad at me once in a while, so be it. I don't give a rat's patootie if they get mad at me. I'm going to do the right thing. With a patient, I follow that same philosophy. I don't look at it like I'm getting in their face or competing with them or trying to stand up to them. I look at it in this fashion. They came to me for help. I'm the authority, not them. If they could have solved the problem themselves, they would have done it by now. And I've had people just this past couple of weeks, there's been 2 or 3 people that have been in therapy for years with other people, who I turned them around in a matter of a few sessions. And that happens because I'm going to do what I've been trained to do in the way I know is best to do it to help them. I'm not doing it to them, I'm doing it for them. So just like when you parent and you say, okay, you might get mad at me, you're not going to like this, but you ain't going to that party Friday night because X, Y, and Z. But Dad, I didn't say you'd like it.
Okay.
But you're living under my roof, you're living by my rules, period.
Okay.
If we can talk about it, yeah, we can talk about it, but you don't get a vote. So with patients, I look at it the same way. I would be remiss in my responsibility and in my obligation to them if I did not hold their feet to the fire and keep them on the right path so that they could have success. So I'm not competing with them. I'm not standing up to them. I'm not challenging them. I'm just keeping them on track to success. And I think when you look at it that way, you get a whole different perspective of what the behavior you're executing demonstrates and accomplishes.
Okay.
Now, how you look at something is so much a part of how successful you are in healing with. It's like I tell my Kung Fu students that if somebody throws a punch at you, instead of going, "Oh my God, a punch," if you say, "Thank you for giving me your arm," it's a whole different outlook at that point. So please, give me your arm. Bring it over. So next, you have a client who wants to pay one session at a time. Whose office is it?
Mine.
Oh, so you have an office policy, that's it. Take it or leave it. It's not negotiable.
So you always sell things in blocks?
The only time I don't is if somebody's just coming back for reinforcement. I have a martial arts competitor who comes to me for, he's quite good. He's still travels all around the world competing and stuff. And every time before an event, he comes to me just for what we call a booster shot. And I'll do one session for that. But if somebody comes to me with an issue, it's just not happening for a number of reasons. And I'll give you a concrete, specific example. I had a therapist working in my office. She was very, very good. A lot of talent as a therapist. Probably, she's been in practice now for many years, but her first couple of years she worked out of my office. And when she first came, well, I'll give you two different things that happened. Let me more closely address the first one. Woman called and she was really obnoxious. She was older woman, and I think if I remember right, she was 72 or 73, something like that. And she was abrasive, obnoxious, demanding. And my practice has always done really, really well. So I didn't really need any new patients. So I'm saying to myself, do I really want this? You know what? I'm going to give her to this other therapist. So I hooked this person up with the woman working at my office. And I had told her, we had this debate many times about she always had done just one session. I said, no, you got to do a program. So we did a program with this woman. After the first session, it was for smoke cessation. She was smoking 3 packs a day. 3 packs a day.
That's a lot.
After the first session, 2 or 3 days went by. I get a phone call from this young lady, and she says, so-and-so called me and she wants her money back. She said it didn't work. I said, well, what are you talking about? It didn't work. I need more details. Didn't work could mean a lot of things. She said, well, that's what I didn't understand either, because she's only had 2 or 3 cigarettes since the session. So I said, okay, it worked. It just didn't snap her right to 0 on the first session. You have to maintain rapport with her, so blame it on me. Tell her that she purchased a program, not a session. We don't give refunds. Clearly states that in the paperwork, that her best option is just to come in, finish the sessions, because it is a program, and she really can't make that determination after one session. So that's what she did. And at the end of the 3-session program, the woman was no longer smoking. Now, if we had just said, oh, okay, we'll give her her money back, then she would have gone out and she'd have been saying, that hypnosis doesn't work, and that place was just a scam, and yada, yada, yada. Now, if she says anything, she's got to say something good. So you've held their feet to the fire, made them have some skin in the game, and gotten an investment from them into the process. They have to be invested in the process, financially, emotionally, in terms of their time. That's why if somebody says to me, I really need a Saturday morning appointment, you're not going to get it with me. You need a Saturday morning appointment. You better get it with somebody. You're going to have to go somewhere else. I don't work weekends. So that investment is critically important. Now, the other thing is, if you don't get the money in advance, and we've talked about this before, you're much more likely to get stiffed. If you set 2 hours aside for a new patient, they just decide not to show up, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Don't do it. If somebody says to me, I'd rather pay at the office here anyway, this is the instructions to the front desk. If somebody says they want to pay when they get here, well, that's fine, but we still need a valid credit card on file. We'll be charging $50 toward the program just to verify the card and to secure the appointment time for you, and you can pay either the whole thing or the balance when you come in. We can always refund your card $50 if you want to pay it all with a check.
Okay.
I very, very rarely, for a real emergency when it does happen, I rarely ever get stiff, because they've already got skin in the game. You know the only time I ever get stiffed? When it's a young adult whose parents are paying for the program. You'll get a kid who says, I don't care, nothing out of my pocket. And that just validates what I'm saying. That if they have skin in the game, they'll show up. I get paid either way. I set the time aside. I was here. I get paid.
What do you do with people that come in to change a habit, and you sell them the 3-session program, and they end up needing something in addition to that? For example, I had a client that we did the 3-session program, and this was a very cooperative, wonderful client. We actually ended up doing 5 sessions because we also ended up doing some Gestalt therapy and some regression. And in her case, it was fine. It was no problem. But with other people, I've noticed that they'll buy the 3-session program, but if anything else is needed after that, as far as they're concerned, they bought the 3-session program, and that should save the world, period.
Well, that's all in how you present it initially. Your initial presentation is going to set the tone for all of that.
Okay.
If you say to somebody, oh yeah, we can do that with a 3-session program, they're going to that's not concrete enough. There's too much ambiguity there. And this is why, if you look at our registration forms, everything is covered. The I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. Every eventuality that we could think of is included in there, because it keeps people friends. And when I say friends, you know what I mean? I don't mean friends with a patient or client. It keeps you on good terms.
Yeah.
So if a person says, well, I didn't agree to this or that, we just photocopy the agreement they signed and send it to them. Okay?
Yeah.
what was I going to say? I had a thought on that. And, oh, the tone you set when somebody comes here, I do a brief consult. There's two ways I accept patients in here at the center. If they really know they just want to do it, they can just come in and do it. If they want to find out a little bit more about it, I'll do a brief consultation with them that they're charged $50 for. That $50 is applied to any program they select. But in either event, when I talk to them, I don't make them any promises. I say, look, this is a team effort. I'll do my part. But hypnosis isn't like in the movies where I hypnotize you, you're in some far out dimension with the eyeball, E equals MC square, Rod Serling standing in the corner, and you're in the Twilight Zone. It's a team effort. We'll come up with a strategy together. I'll be asking you a lot of questions, getting your input. We'll come up with a strategy together. I'll induce hypnosis. You'll allow yourself to go into hypnosis if you really want to make these changes. And then I'll implement the plan while you're in hypnosis. Most of the time, let's say a person came in with something that I thought could be resolved in 3 sessions most of the time. I'll tell them exactly that. Most of the time, 3 sessions is fine for what we're dealing with here. So I'm going to put you in a 3-session program. If by some chance we run into any complication that just isn't coming out in this consultation right now, because we're just having a brief consultation, maybe something else will come up, we can move you into an 8-session program, which is less expensive per session, and we'll just credit you the amount you've already paid to the 8-session program.
What if they only need 5 sessions instead of 8?
I don't make up new programs.
So it's either 3 sessions or 8?
It's either 3 or 8, or if 3 sessions goes by and they're pretty close, I might then say to them, you know what? I think we should do 1 more reinforcement. I want to see it back in 2 weeks. We're going to do a reinforcement in 2 weeks. Or whatever I think the best course of action is. And then this will be the fee for that 1 session. Unless you have other things you want to work on, and we'll just put you into something more cost effective for you.
How much of a, if you don't mind my asking, how much of a discount do you give people for an 8-session program?
Well, a 3-session program in this area, in this market now, and I actually, when the economy kind of hit the dumpster, I reduced my fees on a special. I made it a special, and I just never touched it after that. And when the economy comes round, if it ever does, you know, I'll bump it back up, or if I move to a different area that maybe has a higher average income, I'll put it back up. A lot of what your fees are going to have a great deal of where you set your fees is going to be in what the market will bear in your particular area. And a lot of people around here, even though it's an upper middle class area, got hammered pretty hard in the last couple of years when the economy tanked. A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of businesses went out of business. So right now I charge $6.95 for a 3-session program, and I charge $9.95 for an 8-session program. So obviously it's more cost effective to go into the 8-session program, even if you want to do multiple things. Let's say somebody says, well, I want to do this and I want to do this. All right, well, this should take 3 sessions. this should take maybe another 3. We don't have a 6-session program, but it's going to be a lot cheaper to go into the 8-session program, and then you've got 2 more sessions if you need.
So if they get completely done, they bought the 8-session program and they get completely done in 5 or 6 sessions, then do you just say, well, okay, these other sessions are available for later reinforcement, or?
No, I'll just say to them, you have 2 more sessions available to you. They're good for the next 12 months. We only hold them for a year. And if there's any changes in price, you would be adjusted to what that difference is. So if my fees went up, they might end up having to pay, let's say it went up $25 a session on average. They'd have to pay $25 a session for those remaining sessions. So it's adjusted according to my current fees.
Okay.
It's clearly stated that there are no refunds, that programs are not transferable. All sales are final on programs. But the fact of the matter is, if they only needed 6 sessions and they had an 8-session program, they still paid less than if they had done a 6-session and then paid for individual sessions.
That's true. Okay. That gives me some other ideas about, I of course don't charge what you charge by any means, because I haven't been doing this for 40 years, but I looked around to see what other hypnotherapists were charging and looked at the market. So I charge $120 an hour is what it comes out to. And I discount that a little bit for 3-session programs. I didn't put in an 8-session program, but it looks like that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't charge by the hour, and I would never start somebody with a 1-session thing just because of what we talked about.
Yeah.
I set aside an hour, but a session is generally 50 minutes, and it states that right in the paperwork. The first time they're with me, I set aside 2 hours, probably actually be more like an hour and 45 minutes. All of that's clearly stated in the paperwork.
Okay. I'm using a version of your paperwork, but it may need updating somewhat.
Yeah. We're updating all the time. Every time we see a little tweak that needs to be added, we do it right away. And the fact that we have our forms online is really helpful, because updating it, we don't have to print a mess of stuff. We don't have to go back and change anything there. We just go on to the online form, do the edit, and there it is.
Okay, I can see where that would be very helpful. And then I could just email it to them and say, okay, here's the form, fill it out, bring it with you.
Well, if you're going to email it to them, send it as a PDF file so that they can't make changes in it easily. You can modify a PDF, but it's harder than a Word document. I would have them mail it back to you so you have it before they come in. Now, we don't have to do that. Our form, they go online, they fill out the form online, they click submit, and it appears in our computer. Okay,
well, so I don't have that type of computer program at this point.
I'm fortunate that Sal really catches on to that stuff quickly, because there is some level of programming and all involved.
Yeah.
But we bought the program and just did it in-house.
Okay, well, I only have me, myself, and I, and none of us is very good at that sort of thing.
Okay. Sometimes I get caught off guard by the client's lack of commitment to the process, especially when they have told me how much they need help, how committed they are, etc. Instead, I come to realize that their motivation was one of the following, see below. What are better questions I can ask up front to determine if the client is really committed to the process? If they aren't, at what point do I decide not to work with them at all? Well, I think the only time I would choose not to work with a patient at all is if there was just no commitment, no desire. Let's say they're only coming in because their wife's pissed at them for something, and I'll stop smoking, because if I don't, my wife's going to be on my butt all the time and my life is going to be miserable, so I'll give it a try. I tell them go home.
Okay.
If I get a call from a spouse, if, let's say, a wife calls me and says, I want to make an appointment for my husband, my first question is, why is he not calling? Does he really want to do this? I can help him if he wants to do it. I can't help him if he doesn't, but you want him to do it. And I'm very upfront about that.
Okay.
Okay, your first one on here that shows that your sentence shows a lack of commitment or whatever. They want to prove to themselves that hypnosis will not work.
Yeah, that would be kind of the anger management lady that we talked about earlier. I think that was part of what she was trying to do, because she wanted control. So you know.
Play to her ego. I would just say to her, if you want to prove that this isn't going to work, you can do that. I think it would be to your benefit and it would be using better judgment if you would prove to yourself that your mind is strong enough to allow it to work. So either way, think you can, think you can't, either way you're right. I always let them pick. Pick which one you want. You're in charge. Tell her she's in charge. You know that you don't mean she's in charge of the session. She's in charge of making that choice. You get to pick.
Yeah, everything on this list refers to people that I talked about in the the long thing I sent to you last night. But when I wrote this, I was thinking to myself, this is an area where I've had some trouble keeping the feet to the fire. So I was kind of enumerating the things that I had run into here.
Okay.
To see, so that you see where.
What I want you to do is shift perception. I want you, when you have people like this in your chair, my perception always is, or my methodology is, can I help this person? My goal is to help this person. I will draw the line and send them home if I think that's not a possibility.
And if they're just not willing to commit, they're not willing to get into it.
And I don't have time to waste. If you look at it in this way, again, it's just an attitudinal shift. I've got people sitting in the reception area waiting. They want help. I'm not wasting my time with Joe Schmo who's going to give me a hard time. And I don't say it to him exactly that way, but I do say that to him. I'll say, when you made this appointment, you said you wanted X, Y, and Z. I'm not hearing that level of commitment right now. You committed to doing this or not? Because if you are, I'll help you. If you're not, I got people waiting to see me and that really do want help, and no point in us wasting our time. So you get to choose.
Okay. All right. This really is helping a lot to get that perspective on this. I can see where in some ways, I've been so anxious about just trying to earn some sort of an income that I have not, I've kind of let people get away with some stuff here.
But that's not going to earn you an income. What that's going to do, remember when we talked about rapport? Rapport doesn't mean that they like you. Rapport means that they respect you and they have faith in your ability. And if they can push you around, they're not going to respect you. I would rather lose an occasional patient because they walk out going, okay, if he doesn't want to have me as a patient, up his nose with a rubber hose. I mean, that doesn't hurt my feelings. I could care less. It's, if I can't do my job correctly, I'd rather not do it. In the end, it's going to get you more work for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're going to have people's respect, and they're going to know that you're a professional and you're conducting yourself in a professional way. The other reason you're going to get more people is you're going to have a greater success rate because you've established compliance completely. If they can push you around, that's going to cut their success rate at least in half, if not more, the chances of them being successful. And then you know what they're going to do? Instead of going out and saying, hey, this hypnosis worked really good. I stopped smoking after 3 sessions, or I lost weight, or I'm managing stress so much better now. Instead, they're going to go out and they're going to say, nah, that crap didn't work.
Yeah.
So word of mouth is great advertisement. You want them going out saying good stuff. So I would rather not take somebody on than risk them going out and saying bad stuff. This next one on the list is one and two. I think we kind of blended together there. A potential client wants to try it out without any commitment on their part. Not in my office, they don't. That ain't happening. I've told people who have called with similar requests like that, look, I'm interested in seeing you be successful. If you're not committed to your own success, I'm not going to be more invested in your life than you are. There's a lot of people that'll take your money and take one session. I won't do it because it's not the right thing to do. So if you want to see me, these are my office policies. They're not negotiable. And if not, a lot of people out there be happy to take your money, so I'm sure you'll find somebody. That's the same thing with fees. If people say, well, can't you work on a sliding scale, or can't you do this or that? My fees are not negotiable. These are my fees.
I've never done the sliding scale thing.
No, people will say, can I make payments on it? No, I have an agreement with the bank. I won't loan money if they don't do hypnotherapy.
I remember you saying that. I don't do the payments thing either.
Now, I tell people, look, if I start putting people on payment programs, it's too much effort and time, and I would have to charge more because there's more work involved for me. So I just don't do that.
Yeah.
When you have the money, give me a call. We'll get you on the calendar. And you know, if they get behind or don't pay you, you know who they're going to make the bad guy.
You. Yeah.
Okay, we kind of addressed to this as well in the first two. They've come to you to get someone else off their back, not because they intended to work on their problem. If they're sitting in my chair and I find out they only came in because somebody else pushed them to, they're out faster than they came in. Not going to see them.
That one, yeah.
I have pretty much 100% success rate, and I always tell people it's because I cheat. If I think somebody's not a good candidate and they're not committed, I won't see them.
Yeah. That one also refers to one of the cases I gave you later, the one that was kind of the druggie.
They become angry when you ask them a question about what is going on for them because it makes them think about it too much, and this is uncomfortable.
That was the lady that had a problem with cooking.
I just tell people I can only work with the truth. I need to know what's going on. If I'm working under a false premise or with a lack of knowledge about what the circumstances are, I can't do the job for you I'd like to. So I'm going to need to know this information. If you want to make the shift that you told me you want to make, I didn't make it up, you told me. If you truly want to do that, then you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet sometimes. So I'm going to need to ask those questions. And you know what? If you want to get angry, you can. I'll probably say things that'll piss you off a lot more than you are now.
Well, this lady came back and said, well, I wanted exactly what she said. I wanted you to sprinkle fairy dust powder on me and solve the problem.
I just said, do I look like Tinkerbell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it says in the next sentence about that. Yeah, I guarantee you that's what would have come out of my mouth to her. Do I look like Tinkerbell? I can't do that. I'm a trained professional. I can help you do what you're asking me to do, but there is no fairy dust.
Yeah. I did tell her that, you know. Anyway, that lady had gone for every type of alternative therapy in town, which in Ann Arbor, there's a lot of people that do different alternative stuff. And all of the other ones were ones where she didn't have to do anything, you know, like it was acupuncture and all she had to do was lie there. But when she got to me, I started asking questions.
All right.
And
see, the thing with situations like that is, first thing I'll ask people, if they say, well, I've been for this and I've been for that, I'll say, well, now you're here. So how'd that other stuff work for you? You're here. It obviously didn't resolve the situation. So you want to keep doing the same thing? That doesn't sound sensible to me.
yeah, it wasn't solving her problem, but I'm not sure she wanted to solve the problem.
Sometimes people do want to solve a problem, but they're afraid to take the steps necessary to do it. Those cases, you can kind of help them and motivate them to get them in the right frame of mind. The only time that in general, I mean, there's exceptions to every rule, but generally, the only time you're going to find somebody coming to you who really has no interest in changing is when somebody else forces them to come. Okay.
In the case of that, well, we'll get to that lady later, but
I had a patient just, I was seeing her for, I think she did, I can't remember if she did 1 or 2 8-session programs. I think it was 1. And after about the 3rd session, I said to her, I'm not convinced that you want to make change. I think you like being miserable.